Cash-strapped councils are planning to change how they charge rates for retirement villages with an 800% hike for residents. The Cairns Council is the first to put the proposal forward, but others are watching. And no surprise, there's been a backlash. Daniel Gannon is Executive Director of the Retirement Living Council and joins me now. Daniel, an 800% hike, is this just a cash grab?
Look, this is nothing more than a cruel cash grab from the Cairns Regional Council at a time when so many Australians are doing it so tough right now with cost of living spiralling out of control. This is one of the least compassionate policy proposals that we have seen in a very long time. Whenever councils, or any tier of government for that matter, put forward policy changes that have an impact on older people, pensioners, people on fixed low incomes right around the country, that councils need to take into consideration the ability of these people to actually make these payments. And what we've seen from this council is a cruel cash grab with no compassion and no heart.
So right now, councils usually levy rates on the entire parcel of land, but they're planning to slug residents individually. Is that the plan?
That's right. Look, retirement villages are quite unique when it comes to councils levying rates on these communities, because the operators and the owners of these communities, they pay for the installation of roads, the installation of lighting, garden maintenance, the ongoing upkeep and maintenance of all of the different unique components within a retirement village. They're put forward and paid for by the retirement village operators, and then
so
of course
it's quite
the residents.
Different to the usual ratepayer situation.
Totally different. We are talking about two totally different situations when it comes to rates being put forward for these different homes. So residents in these homes, what we see right now in one community in White Rock, for example, is residents facing an 800% increase in the council rates that are levied on that particular community. That's 800% year on year, and of course about 98% of people living in retirement villages in Cairns are on the pension. They're on fixed low incomes and with very little capacity to pay.
So this council in Cairns in far north Queensland, and we know that budgets for local councils right around the country are pretty tight right now. Are you fearful that other councils will look at this and follow suit?
Look, we'd hope that councils around Australia can see this for what it is, and that is a cruel cash grab that has no compassion. We've spoken to residents who have told us that they'll have to cut things like a private oncology treatment because they're a cancer patient. Some people have to sell their car, which of course means losing their independence. And other people have told us that they'll have to resort to having Vegemite sandwiches for dinner. This is not the way that good policy is put forward at a council level.
So essentials, these are the essentials, and this is important health care that many residents will have to go without.
This is truly awful when people are put in a situation where they have to choose between cancer treatment and council rates, which is why, of course, this council needs to put up its hand, admit that it's got this wrong, and walk away from this cruel cash grab.
And my understanding too is in retirement villages, you own the house but not the land, and the operators, as you say, they take care of the roads, they take care of the rubbish. So slugging people the way that normally ratepayers would be hit, it seems inherently very unfair.
People living in retirement villages, in traditional villages, they're on what's called a licence or a loan licence to live in that community. So they don't actually own the home and they don't own the land. But of course, council rates are passed on to residents living in these communities. And of course, that they're aware of this arrangement when they sign a contract to move in. But we are seeing many villages across Queensland that are now facing up to an 800% year-on-year rates hike, which of course is unfathomable, it's unconscionable. And we would like to think, and we would hope to think, that other councils around the country would see this for what it is, and that it is bad policy that will hurt the people who can least afford it in our community.
So what are the options for aged care residents in this particular council, and I guess for all aged care residents if this could potentially spread beyond that one council area?
Well, look, as we understand it, this particular council is due to make its decision, its final decision as part of its budget for next financial year in June. So we're talking next month. So this council will land its decision on whether or not for some people to increase rates by up to 800%. They're making that decision very soon. So we are calling on all residents living in these retirement villages in Cairns to knock on the door of your local MP and, of course, bring in some help to make sure that this awful, awful proposal doesn't go anywhere. Now, of course, there might be a contagion impact with other councils, and we would absolutely tell those councils to not proceed with a bad policy that hurts people in our community who can least afford it.
Because we know that councils are dealing with cost of living pressures like we all are. They need to find extra income from somewhere, but this is just going too far, a step too far.
Look, this is terrible, but we understand that this particular change will only bring in about $500,000 extra to this council's budget. Now, their council's worth just under $700 million. So for $500,000 to put forward such an awful proposal that will force people into choosing between cancer treatment and council rates, it's not just bad policy. It should be stopped in its tracks right now.
Yeah, well, let's hope it is. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.